Hi, Jeremy here, Modern Vitality. In today's video, I'm going to tell you a bit of a story because a little while back, I lost my ability to speak from toxic mold. And I'm going to tell you what that experience was like and also what I did because obviously I have my ability to speak and I'm much better place now that my brain is working again. So we have all kinds of folks come through here with varying conditions. There's fibromyalgia, lupus, RA, chronic fatigue syndrome, Lyme disease, of course, mold exposure isn't always at the root of these kinds of conditions, but it can play a role. We see a lot of folks come through with various things, even like candida, adrenal fatigue. There can be a mold element. It's not always mold, but sometimes we need to understand what mold can do because other pathogens can work in a similar way too. So we're going to be looking at that in this video. Let's get started. So while this channel and my work in general isn't really about me and my own health issues that I've had, I try to focus more on other people and how I can help them, right? That's the main thing. This isn't about, hey, my suffering, right? But I do find sometimes when I share these kinds of stories, it can be helpful for people that are in a similar situation. So here we go. I was in a house and the house had some issues with humidity and water. And basically there was mold coming. And I didn't realize at the time, even though I should have, what the mold was doing. Now, this is crazy to admit this, okay? I'm just gonna be really transparent. I've been working with people with mold issues for years, with complex chronic health conditions. Mold is often a big component. We use herbs, we use special practices, breathing techniques, all these things to help get the mold out of the body and heal people. I've been doing this for a long time. And when it was happening to me, I couldn't connect the dots. Didn't connect the dots, right? And some of it, I'll admit, was a little bit of hubris because I knew, my mind knew that there was a mold issue or a potential mold issue going on in the house. I knew that. And at the same time, another part of me was like, well, we haven't felt any changes, right? The kids aren't getting sick. My wife, myself, like nothing's really happening bad to us. So maybe we have stronger immune systems, or maybe because we're using herbs every day that we can ward this off or something like that. Maybe we're just not affected. And that is a cognitive bias, right? That's not a good way of looking at things because we all have this where we tend to think we're special. We all have the thing where we think the rules don't apply to us or something like that. I call it the seatbelt fallacy. That's my kind of nickname for that, seatbelt fallacy. But basically, we all think that, maybe we're a little bit special. And, I fell into that and it's a mistake and I'm here to admit my mistake, but I'm also admitting it very publicly so that if you're on the fence about this, you're not making the same mistake, right? Even if you know better. And I knew better and I still kind of fell into this trap. And when this started to become evident was when I couldn't talk, right? All of a sudden I was like, holy smokes, okay, that something's happening here. And what do I mean by I couldn't talk? There is a condition called aphasia, which means that you can't speak, right? You have a hard time with language. And there's different reasons people can get aphasia. It's not just for mold, just so you know. There can be all kinds of different reasons. Anything that can affect the brain function can cause aphasia. It could be a stroke, could be things like vaccine injuries, right? Heavy metal exposure, other toxicities, brain inflammation. There's all kinds of reasons why people could have aphasia. Now, in my case, fortunately, it was transient, which means it would last for about an hour or two, right? And there's also different kinds of aphasia, which are, the one I had was expressive, which means it's your language coming out. I'm going to just give you a little rundown. Some people, I've met plenty of patients actually that have firsthand experience of this, and people are like, I know exactly what you're talking about. That happened to me, or I'm still dealing with consequences of it. So this is actually more widespread than people acknowledge. But for those that don't know, basically what happens is we have language centers in our brain, and those can be affected to where we don't interpret language, meaning you could have incoming language where you're trying to read or trying to listen, and it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't get in, right? Or you could have expressive, where you can read and take in information, but you just can't say anything back or you can't write anything. And this is actually quite disturbing. To be really candid with you, this is quite disturbing because you never realize how important things are until they're taken away. This is kind of a human condition, right? Where we tend to take things for granted, right? But the ability to communicate is massive, massive. The ability to take in information and listen to other people and understand what they're saying, that's the whole of human connection is built on that, right? And then the ability to express yourself is massive, especially, I talk a lot. I've got a lot of videos. I do a lot of writing. I'm very communicative. It's part of my job. It's part of how I help to educate people. It's, I enjoy it, right? And most people, I think that doesn't make me special either, right? Most people have some form of sharing with the world. Even if we're kind of private or introverted, we still like to be able to write and talk to people we enjoy talking to, right? So when you take that away, it's really damaging. And you can see examples of aphasia. There's a clip of a reporter who had it happen to her on the air when she was going down to cover some event. And then basically what happens is the words just start melting. It's kind of like when you have the old cassette tapes, right? And then if there was something wrong with the cassette tape, it's like the words would just kind of turn into just gobbledygook. It's just nothing. It's just like word soup. And this lady had this happen to her live and on the air. And I'm sure that was really difficult and embarrassing for her because part of her job is public speaking, right? And then we also have the latest is Bruce Willis, right? Has retired currently from acting because he has aphasia that's not gone away. It's not transient. Now there's different speculation about what's maybe causing his. Hard to know. But the thing with it is it's terrifying. I'll just tell you right now. It puts you in a nonverbal, isolated place. And there's lots of other conditions that have nonverbal as a symptom, right? And maybe there's something to do with the brain region and different kinds of toxins affecting that, right? Of course. But I can tell you it's a very lonely and odd place to be, because what happens is with aphasia, in my experience, what happens is the part of your brain that thinks of ideas is still active. And what we start to learn when one thing shuts down is you learn actually some interesting aspects of what's actually going on in your mind, because the part of my brain that could think of a concept was still working very well. And I would think of a concept, and then what normally happens, like right now while I'm speaking to you, is I can think of a concept, and then that concept has words and language associated with it, right? That's how we communicate. I take an idea, I wrap it in language, I give it to you. You receive it, you take the language and absorb it, and then that same idea, or hopefully very close to that same idea, is kind of mirrored in your brain. And now we've communicated, right? And what I've said has now gotten through. Well, what's really interesting is you can still get the idea, but there's no language to wrap it in. So what happens is you've got a concept, right? And you're in the land of no language, no words, right? It's this formless concept, but it's a concept that exists nonetheless. So if I wanted to communicate something, I could have the idea of it. But I as I started to wrap it in language, before I could finish saying the words, they would start melting. I tried typing, because there's a part of me, I'm lucky with a medical background that I could tell what was going on, right? But there's a part of me that was a little bit like, holy smokes, what is happening? And there's another part of me that was also like, isn't this interesting? Let's see what we can do here. Let's try some experiments. Is it only verbal? Is it written? Like, what's going on? Can you read? And I could read things. It was so interesting. So, and this comes with migraines and things like that usually, so you get the light show going on and then you also can't talk. It's just a wild experience. I don't recommend it. But if you are going through this, it can be very enlightening as to how your own brain works. So I would try to write with a pen, and that was kind of a mess because my fingers would start making letters that shouldn't have been there. And then I tried typing, and that was also really hard because of autocorrect. If you think autocorrect now, just on a normal day where there's no aphasia or anything, autocorrect is still kind of a hindrance sometimes. You're trying to type a word and it thinks you're trying to say something else and it keeps pushing you back to what it thinks, and that's frustrating. But when you have aphasia going on and you're trying to type and you're typing something and that's melting as you're typing it, because now you're typing letters that have no business being in the word, and then the autocorrect is going crazy trying to figure out what you even mean, and then taking what you started to write, turn it into something else. It was a mess. It was a mess. I mean, the word salad I created when this first happened was just, the next morning I looked at it, it was just mind-boggling. Wow, this is incredible. So that's aphasia, right? This is what happens. You can't speak, you can't communicate. And that was expressive aphasia. And again, I didn't have the other kind where I couldn't, read words or something. I could still read. So I can't really speak to that, but I can speak to the expressive aphasia. And it really stinks. It's rough. And for me, it was bundled with these migraines and scotoma, which is like a electric light show in my peripheral vision. And then, after that would pass, then the wicked headache would come. It was pretty miserable. And I realized, hey, this has to do with the black mold that's been growing in the house, right? We're out of here. Now, This was during some of the height of pandemic lockdown. There weren't a lot of places to move to live in. It was a really interesting and difficult situation. Not good timing, right, for this, because we didn't have the same kind of freedom to just jump, So I think that's also part of why I had a little bit of hubris, because it was going to be so difficult to find another place to live for any period of time, because everything was full, basically. There was no room at the inn. So we stuck with it for longer than we should have. But once that aphasia started happening, I said, oh, that's it. I connected the dots. It took a very strong hammer of a signal for me to realize this is very bad, right? Which I'll admit, this is embarrassing for a health professional. I help people with all these kinds of conditions all the time. I'm constantly helping people with these. And it's very obvious. And I'll tell people, hey, you need to check your house for mold, because you might have hidden mold you don't even know about that's causing these symptoms. And they find it and they're like, holy smokes, I didn't know we had mold in our house. Let's get that handled or moved. And then some of their symptoms clear up, right? But here I was in my own life, not able to make that connection. And what I found really interesting was that I was very aware of the kids. Like, what's going on with the kids? Are they having any issues from this? Right? I thought I was okay. And then I had the aphasia migraines. And I said, okay, we got to get out of here. And then what I realized after we did leave, which is the first, if you've got mold, get out, right? That's the first step. I got to tell you that. Get out. Go to a different environment. Get out of the mold. It's not helping you, right? So this video is, hey, I lost my ability to speak, but also here's what I did. Get out. GTFO. Get out of there, right? And what I realized once we got out of there is that there were symptoms that the kids were having, but they were very subtle. And the thing with this is, and I'm sharing, again, could be kind of embarrassing, but I'm sharing this stuff so that you can learn from my mistakes, basically. A lot of times we can write off different symptoms because they just sound like nothing, if one of your kids has, oh, my legs hurt. Well, it's growing pains. You're growing. I remember being a kid and my knees were killing me and I was growing, and, it passes really quickly. Well, when you change environments and get out of mold and all of a sudden the leg pains go away, maybe they weren't growing pains, right? So there's nothing I can do about that. I kept my kids in that environment longer than I should have, but we got out as soon as it really as soon as everything clicked. I think as a parent, you try to do the best you can, and you don't beat yourself up about mistakes you've made, right? But if I could go back, I'd get out of there immediately, right? Or maybe never go there in the first place, because there may be other subtle things that, you have no idea about. And so for you watching this, if you have little subtle health issues and you have mold, just connect the dots, right? And just be safe and get the mold out of there. It's not helping. I can tell you that it's not helping. So that was the first thing I did. Rule number 1, change the environment, get out of there. Okay. You got to get out of there. Now, the next thing I did, I took my own medicine. Okay. Because the curtain has lifted here. It's very important to make these connections. So all the things that I recommend when people come through, like we have a group, right? Support group, Solutions and Support, Modern Vitality Solutions and Support group. And I advocate very strongly, which if you've been in my world for any period of time, 4-stage process. Stage 1, immune system. Stage 2, digestive. Stage 3, neuroadrenal. Stage 4, blood circulation. In that order, that's how your body wants to heal. There is a plan. There is an order. We don't come with a manual, but we've basically figured out the broad strokes here. If you violate this order, your progress will be a lot slower. It's just the rules of the game, right? So of course, took myself and my family through this process where we focused a lot on immune and especially digestive stages. Everybody's doing great, right? So I'm very happy to say, right, that everybody's doing very well. But we went through this process, and it's not necessarily a fast process. The first step is probably the biggest: get out of the environment, and then don't go back. This is where people really screw this up. And it's because life has logistics. And so you leave a moldy house, but then you have to go back there to get some stuff, because it was just supposed to be getting repaired for a little bit. So you didn't really bring everything when you moved. Don't keep going in and out of the house. Because I had that happen too, where I had to go back in there and get something. And then I came out and I was like, holy smokes. Yeah, I could tell. You just can start to tell, your nervous system starts getting kind of weird. Other symptoms too, I was having like palpitations where you can feel your heart just whoom in your chest. That was new for me. I'm not a nervous person usually, and to have my nervous system going crazy and getting anxiety and palpitations, I was wondering what's going on here. That was before the aphasia. I hadn't connected the dots, and I should have known better, right? I should have. So for you, please don't make that same mistake. Get out of the environment, stay out of the environment, right? Get out of there. And then also go through a process of just like how you would have to renovate a house, right? You've got to rehab a house that has mold damage. You got to do the same process in your body. And there's an order, just like there's an order to the house, right? You wouldn't go back to the house and just start fixing random stuff and just trying to bring in like the most expensive carpet or something when there's still like a bunch of moldy drywall. You take that down first, right? There's an order. It's the same thing with order with your body and getting your body back, right? Renovating your body, remediating your body. You can do this, right? And of course, I've got plenty of other videos where I go into that order. Stage 1, immune. Stage 2, digestive. Those are the two probably most important for most people. Stage 3 is where we get to the neuroadrenals. Stage 4 is blood circulation, right? That means then that's when it's time to actually get back to exercising and those kinds of things. If you start exercising too hard in the beginning before you've done a proper stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, you can set yourself up for triggers and setbacks, which I did. I've found that too, which again, it's like I should have known better than to rush back to exercising. Because guess what happened? More aphasia, gobbledygook, word salad, right? Okay, I wasn't ready yet. I hadn't cleared all that garbage out of my system. It was still in there. So we learn, life's not perfect. I say this all the time. Healing's not linear. It's not a straight line, right? Sometimes we get going and we have backslides, right? Sometimes we do things where we're learning. It's trial and error. I'm still learning too. I've been doing this a long time, planning to be doing it for a long time still learning, getting better every day. So I'm telling you about my failures so that it can help to create your success, right? If you're struggling with a complex chronic health condition, mold or otherwise, right? Anything inflammatory and weird, any of these mystery illnesses, please know you don't have to do that alone. You can be in a group of people. I'm there every day answering questions, giving my perspective, and I invite you. It's free to join. You can be a guest. There's a link in the description below. If your application looks good, like you'll be a good fit for our group, I'll get you in as soon as I can. It's pretty cozy. We tend to fill up. It might be a month, might be more than that of a wait, but just know I try to give everybody an opportunity that raises their hand and wants to come in. So I will get back to you as soon as I can. And there's that. If you're in mold, if you're in doubt, get out, right? When in doubt, get out. GTFO. Don't mess around with mold at all. Okay, let me give you my cautionary tale. Hope this helps you. Let's get you feeling better. Cheers.